All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash, giving double honors to the apostles and elders, the great millstone. Shalom to the hopefully elect. Shalom to all the brothers out here laboring in this truth with sincerity. Shalom to the few sisters that watch. It's coming back with another lesson. Saw this, the elders, of the GMS Dallas camp. This is the Elder Yashawama's page right here. Remnant Save 144, and this comes from this past week's camp. And it was just something that the Elder Ariala said, that just caught my attention. Because what he's gonna say is 100% true. If you're in this truth, being a teacher, trying to truly please Yahweh Shem Yahushua, it can be at some point in times, could be, if I must say, a little bit like overwhelming, to the flesh, man. That's why we must continue to be in the spirit, because any given time that we slip and let the flesh overtake us, man, we could be out of here. We have to rule over our spirits, and definitely rule over the flesh, man, because it's a constant struggle every day, but being a teacher, prophet, we're held to a higher standard. Not only by, brothers, elders, the apostles, but also Yahweh Shem Yahushua, man. At any given time, Yahweh Shem Yahushua can just strip the spirit from us, even put us to death, man. We know some of us will lose our life, but, we want to do it serving the Lord, man. Not being a nigga in the street or somebody that just truly fell out of the faith. But that's enough rambling. We're going to watch this small clip, and we're going to get into some scriptures. So, what is it? Come on, man. Damn. It's a lock here. So let's see. There it is.
Talking on
Put to some scripture, goddammit.
He probably a younger brother,
Yeah.
He wasn't being disrespectful, but the point is, it's a heavy thought to walk in this life, and you have your woman or your job or this, and you're trying to navigate this world, but still you're in the truth, and you don't care, but you still got to take care of yourself.
Still got to care.
It's a crazy. It makes you you feel insane.
Yes, sir.
You feel insane, man. That's why you gotta lean into the brotherhood, man. Lean into the scriptures, cause you'll go that way, and the flesh is gonna pull you. That's why you have the example of Yahweh when he was fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. What was Satan coming at him with? Things of the flesh, man.
Flesh, right?
We're gonna run that back, cause that was heavy, man. Heavy.
Talking on
Put to some scripture, goddammit.
He probably a younger brother, Yeah. He wasn't being disrespectful, but the point is, it's a heavy thought to walk in this life, and you have your woman or your job or this, and you're trying to navigate this world, but still you're in the truth, and you don't care, but you still got to take care of yourself.
Still got to care.
It's a crazy. It makes you you feel insane.
Yes, sir.
You feel insane, man. That's why you gotta lean into the brotherhood, man. Lean into the scriptures, cause you'll go that way, and the flesh is gonna pull you. That's why you have the example of Yahweh when he was fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. What was Satan coming at him with? Things of the flesh, man.
Flesh, right?
Yeah. So that was it, man. In that little bit of portion of what he said, it was very heavy, man. Because it's a constant war between the flesh and the spirit. And you have to be, around brothers that are like-minded, or people that are like-minded, which with us are the brothers in the camp. you know we're like-minded, man. Who else can you go to in this walk besides brothers that's in the faith, man? People of the world, they can help you on some points, but when it comes to truly serving Yahweh Hashem Yahushua to the fullest and understand how to navigate through it, every day, hey man, like you say, you gotta lean on the brotherhood. So let's go to the book of St. James, and we're gonna go to the NLT on this. It kind of goes off a little bit, but we pretty much can decipher what's being said here. So we go to the book of St. James chapter 3, and we're going to go to verse 1. This is NLT. It says, "Dear brothers and sisters, not many of you should become teachers in the church, for we who teach will be judged more strictly." We know women can't teach. That's where they went off a little bit. But it says, we'll read it again. "Dear brothers," it says, "and sisters," but we know it's hey, only men teach this, can really teach this truth, man. "Dear brothers and sisters, not many of you should become teachers in the church, for we who teach will be judged more strictly." And this is why you see a lot of brothers fall out, because it's a heavy load, man. This is a heavy load. This is more stressful than any worldly job that you can have, because we working for the power of the universe, man, the creator of all things, the one that holds your life in his hand, man. So we're gonna be judged more strictly. That's why, like the elder said, you got the flesh pulling at you, and it's warring with the spirit. So you gotta be spiritual. We get weak sometimes, but that's why you got, like you said, you gotta lean on the brotherhood. So it's very vital to have a brotherhood, man. Because you can't, certain stuff, yeah, you can go to your woman about, but when it's something that heavy on your mind about the truth, or something that's going on that's conflicting with what you got going on in the truth, no other person you can go to, man, but a brother. So, this is why we continue moving, man. Leaning on these scriptures, like he said. So we'll go to the book of Romans, chapter 8, and we'll just get verse 1. Just to get a little context, but then we're gonna drop down, because this is pretty much what he was speaking on right here. So it says, this book of Romans chapter 8 verse 1, it says, "There is therefore now no condemnation in them which are in Mashiach Yahushua, who walk not after the flesh, but after the spirit." And that's the point. We got to walk after the spirit, not the flesh. And being here in Babylon the Great, we always being tempted. Esau makes it hard. You want to take the path of least resistance, which is not always the right path. That's why you got to stay in the spirit, because you take that path and it can lead to your destruction, man. It can lead to you falling out the truth. It can lead to you losing your understanding. And that's not the way we want to go. So let's go to verse 5, and we'll read down. It says, "For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the spirit, the things of the spirit." So we want to mind the things of the spirit, because we know, being in the flesh leads to death, man. Basically, being in the flesh leads to sin, and the sin leads to death ultimately. So verse 6, it says, "For to be carnally minded is death, being in the flesh, which is going to cause you to sin. But to be spiritually minded is life and peace. We find comfort in these scriptures, man. We find comfort, talking to a brother that's been through the same situation that you've been in. Just like being on the job, you got a Jake that's been on the job for 30 years. He know the ins and outs of the job. So if you had problems, you'll go to him, because he's seen it all. And it's the same way in this truth, man. You can't go to that Jake on the job about a situation that you're dealing with in this truth, which is way more important than that job. So verse 7, it says, because the carnal mind is enmity with Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. So because the carnal mind is enmity against Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. It says, for it is not subject to the law of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, neither indeed can be. Verse 8. So then they that are in the flesh cannot please Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Because if you're living with a carnal mind, you constantly sinning, man. Matter of fact, let's get this word, enmity. Enmity.
Strong's G 2189. Echthra. Echthra.
And it says hostility by implication, a reason for opposition. Enmity, hatred. So you going against Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, man. Basically because you sinning. You going against what the Most High has set up. You breaking the laws. Which is fact, man. That's what you're doing. So it's definitely vital that we stay in the spirit at all times, man. When you're making decisions, when you're dealing with your family, dealing with your woman, dealing with your job. So let's go to the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 7. We're going to get verse 1. It says, having therefore these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of the Most High. Why is that? Because the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, knowledge and understanding, man. And if you don't fear the Lord, you're going to be out here doing whatever. We, stay within the lines. We stay within the bounds. All right, Salakia, yeah, a call came in, but we'll read that again. It's 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1. It says, having therefore these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Because that's really, the thing about it, man. You see these people out here living any kind of ways, being mold, being murderers, being adulterers. They don't fear the Lord. That's the clear separation between them and us. We fear the Lord because we know exactly, what he's capable of doing to us, man. And we know what the end game is. It all leads to death, man. Living outside, what Yahweh Bashem Yahushua has set up. Now, if he, calls us back to the spirit world while we serving him, then, that's just the way it was meant to be. But if you out here living a wicked life and you perish, man, that's not the way to go, man. And ultimately, if you continue to live wickedly and you make it to the end or close to the end, you're gonna take that chip and then you're gonna be destroyed. during World War III. So, that's pretty much it on that one. Let's see. We'll get one more. We'll get one more. Go to the book of Galatians, chapter 5. And you see it right there at the top, man. Walk by the Spirit. Walk by the Spirit. So let's jump down. We'll go to verse 16, And this is where it's talking about walking in the Spirit, man. This is the book of Galatians chapter 5 and verse 16. It says, "This I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh." Just like the elder was saying, the Spirit is pulling it at you. So like the flesh is pulling at you, you got your family, you got your woman, you got your job, and at the same time, you in the back of your head, you're like, man, I ain't even thinking about this stuff, man. I'm saying, I'm ready to get out of here. I'm ready for it all to be over with. But you still got to maintain, you still got to maneuver because you got responsibilities, here, as well as in the faith. That's why if you're walking in the Spirit, man, you're going to have the strength to continue, man. Yahweh Hashem Yahushua is going to give you that strength to push on. You just got to endure and overcome whatever comes at you, man. So verse 17, it says, "For the flesh lusteth, tongue tied over here. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary to one another, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would." So you constantly thinking about some carnal stuff, and at the same time, you're supposed to be doing a lesson, you're supposed to be reading, you're supposed to be getting up with brothers, but you got the flesh, man, pulling you away. That's why, it's definitely, like I say, man, it's pretty much self-explanatory. Stay in the Spirit. Verse 18, it says, "But if ye be led of the Spirit, ye are not under the law." Why is that? Because you're not going to be sinning. You're going to fear the Lord. It's not saying that you can go out here and do whatever. If you're walking in the Spirit, you're going to fear the Lord. You're going to want to please the Lord. Therefore, you're not going to sleep with another man's wife. You're not going to eat pork. Things of that nature. You're not going to cut your beard off. Verse 19, it says, "Now the works of the flesh are manifest in these." And we see it right here. "Adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, imitations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, which all sins, man. You can look up each one of these, and it's a law for it. Witchcraft. The Lord says, "Suffer not a witch to live." Idolatry. That's one of the big 10, man. So to speak, the big 10, like they say, but murders, all these go against the Lord, man. It says, "Of which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua." So we definitely got to walk in the Spirit, and like I say, that what what Elder Ariala said, it just sparked this lesson, man, through the Spirit. So with that being said, I want to constantly give our praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Rekakwadash. Shalom.